Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. This is episode 7 of Sincere Milk and Solid Food. I am your host, Nyangu, and I'm really excited about this episode. We have spent the last few weeks auditing our souls and protecting our private dialogues, but today we are getting tactical. Last week, we were dealing with the old and the young prophet, and I was making it very clear that we need to shut down those conference calls and go back into those private dialogues and private lines with God and just deal with life from that place. But then it occurred to me, you need to understand why your yes is only as strong as the no that protects it. So the title of this episode is going to be The Polite Prison, the No that Protects. In the world of construction, a building is only as strong as its load-bearing walls. In the spirit, your life is only as stable as your boundaries. Here is the solid food for the day. Your yes is only as strong as the no that protects it. So your no is the bodyguard to your yes. If you can't say no to the distractions, your yes to God is just a wish. It's time to talk about the polite prison. But again, like I always say, before we go any deeper into the meat of today's word, I want to make sure that you and I stay connected beyond this episode and the 10, 20, 30 minutes that it takes for this episode. The work we do in the warehouse shouldn't stop when this episode ends. So what I've done is I've set up a central hub for us on Instagram, Threads, and Pinterest. You can find the link of all of these in the show notes or by visiting the link tree in my bio at Sincere Milk and Solid Food Podcast, at Sincere Milk and Solid Food Podcast. Follow me on Threads for daily solid food nuggets to chew on, and check out our Pinterest boards for the visual blueprints and the scriptures that we are studying and the frameworks that we're using to elevate us to the next level of our spirituality and relationship with God. And like I always say, this is not about numbers. This is about making sure that you have the tools to maintain your warehouse for the week. So go hit that follow button and let's keep the dialogue going. Now, back to the podcast. The jackals of compromise. You're wondering, where do the jackals come in? If you remember episode 2, we're dealing with Samson and him chasing the jackals and catching them and using them as his revenge against the Philistines. So I like the terminology of the jackals. I don't know why, but I love it. So remember episode 2, we talked about the 300 jackals Samson tied together to burn the fields of the Philistines. Those jackals were destructive because they were tied to a fire they couldn't control or put off. When you live without boundaries, you are essentially letting jackals into your harvest. Every time you say yes to something God didn't appoint, you're tying a torch to a jackal and letting it run loose in your field. At least with Samson, it wasn't his field, it was the Philistines' field, but you are tying that jackal yours. You're catching the jackal, you're tying it, putting the fire on the tail and letting it loose in your own fields, punishing yourself. That is what you're doing whenever you say yes and it was meant to be no. By the time you get around to your actual calling, the field is already ash. You are not nice for letting everyone in. You are being a poor steward of the land God gave you to cultivate. So now we're going to deal with confrontation versus calculation. This brings us to the personal note I shared. I had to ask, am I not confronting this person because I'm non-confrontational, or is it because I'm calculating? And this was a true come to Jesus moment and I recommend that everybody who is listening does that work for themselves. You need to sit down with yourself, preferably with a pen and paper, write at the top in capital letters and say, am I non-confrontational or am I calculating? and let the truth of that question flow out, the true answers, you know. Are you staying quiet because you're kind, or because you've decided you need that person's favor down the line? I was a victim of this, you know. This is the polite prison. We call it being easygoing, but God calls it hedging your bets. You know, you don't want to lose on both ends. You do not want to go all in. You're the perfect investor because you have counted the cost and you've decided, nah, I'm going to invest in both places. At least even if I lose on one, I'm still making on the other side. You're compromising your integrity today because you're afraid you won't have provision tomorrow. This is exactly what trapped the young prophet in 1 Kings chapter 13. And if you do not know that episode, it is the previous one before this one, so that's episode 6. Go and give it a listen. It's really going to highlight a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this episode. The young prophet couldn't say no to the senior prophet because he calculated that a senior's approval was safer than his own secret instruction. He chose a polite compromise over a confrontation or obedience. When you calculate instead of obey, you are telling God that the arm of flesh is more reliable than his hedge of fire. So this is the anatomy of a simple no. Many of you are exhausted. I know I was exhausted equally, not because of the devil, but because of your yes. Again, I'm a victim of that. In Matthew chapter 5 verse 37, it is very clear. But let your communication be yes. Yes. Let your communication be yes, yes, or no, no. For whatsoever is more than these comes of evil. Anything beyond the simple no is a leak. When you feel the need to explain your no with a long story or apology, you're actually seeking permission to have a boundary. And I also want you, on that piece of paper I told you to have, I want you also to put, who has trained me to need their validation or their permission to have my boundaries? You can write that out in whatever way you're going to verbalize it, but you understand what I'm saying. And here's the solid, and before I get the solid full truth, I want you to not navigate. I want you to go deep and figure out the answer to that question. This is what your next step is hinged upon. Your next step depends on you finding the answer to this and rising above it. And so, to the solid food truth, you know, the high value believer doesn't need to justify their no to people who aren't authorized to hear their yes. If you're constantly explaining, you're still in infant faith. You're still looking for the old prophet's approval instead of resting in the Father's instruction. Your no is the fence that keeps the jackals out. So I want to give you the tactical audit, which is actually going to be a 7-day challenge. I'm also participating in this, very excited. Number 1, I want it to be the no without a because. For the next week, when you decline a request that doesn't align with your priority, say, no, I can't do that. Then stop talking. I don't want you to explain, but I want you to watch the jackals of guilt try to run through your mind. But you have to decide to stand your ground. Like I said in episode 5, you are going to have to set yourself to this. Number 2 is the bet audit. Look at the people you've been avoiding confronting. Are you waiting for a better time, or are you afraid they'll need their connection later? Are you waiting for a better time, or are you afraid you'll need their connection later? If it's the latter, you're trusting the jackal more than the shepherd. Audit number 3, the yes protection. Identify your one big yes for this season. Now list 3 things you must say no to this week to protect that harvest from the fire. So do this within 7 days, and let's come back and discuss how you did. I don't need to be given the details, but if you'd like to, I am ready and willing to listen. And so this is actually a short episode, because you've got a lot of work to do within the next 7 days. I'm just going to leave it here. And for our sound of this week, I would really like you to listen to Juanita Bynum, You Are God. Again, I am in the frequency of worship. I'm in the frequency of just loving God for who He is. Not because I need Him to protect my house from burning. Not because I need to do this, because if I don't do it, then my life might fall apart. But because I love Him. Because He is my God. Because Him and I are in partnership for my life and for my destiny. So You Are God by Juanita Bynum. Feel free to give it a listen. And as you listen, I want you to feel the weight of your own authority. This song is the anthem for the person walking out of the polite prison. Let the rhythm remind you that you are a high-value partner in the kingdom and your time is sacrosanct. And so for this week, I would like to recommend that you chew on the fruit of self-control. True self-control is the power to say no to a good thing so you can stay faithful to the God thing. And your assignment for this week is, I want you to execute your first no today. Don't let the jackals burn your field. So we're at the end of this episode, and I'm going to close in prayer. Lord, I pray for the one trapped in the polite prison. Break the spirit of people pleasing. Give them the spine to say no without an explanation. Let them see that their provision is in your hand, not in the hands of those they're afraid to offend. Amen. So I would like you to stay in the word, or I encourage you to stay in the word. Stay in the work and keep your nose sharp. God bless you.